What's going on, fellow A-plusers, fellow Force users? It is I, your host, Adam Perez, back once again with a brand new Skeleton Crew review for you guys. We're going to dive into episode number 4, and it is not just myself here today. That's right. For the first time all season, baby, we've got the Jedi Council back once again, coming to you guys to go ahead and break down Skeleton Crew episode 4. Our family reunion, man, since our first time, the finale, I should say, of the Acolyte. It's good to have each and every one of you guys back. We missed you, Stuart. We missed you, Crystal. Will and I were certainly trying to hold down the fort as best as we could, but we love having you guys here and having your valued opinion. So it's good to have you guys back.
Definitely good to be back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's really good to see you guys. Shout out to Scarif, who certainly came through for us also. He says, hello all, good to see you in the live chat with us. Look, as we go through our reviews, always certainly let your thoughts be known. These are simply just our A+ opinions, but we certainly always want to know yours. Stuart, Crystal, what have you guys been up to lately? Crystal, how's the business going for you? How you been doing? It's been a minute since we were on live with each other.
Yeah, it's been really good. Been busy with work. Also, I have braces. I don't think I had braces last time I saw you guys. So it's like my big life update. So
yeah. How are you liking it so far? I mean, you getting used to them?
Yeah, I love them. I feel like my teeth are already really straight. I really got them to correct like a jaw issue. So the teeth straight is just like a great byproduct of that.
Nice. Wow, it looks great. I love the makeup today. Neel Nation, stand up for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good to have you back. Good to see you, Stuart. We missed you the past couple of weeks, man. What's been going on with you?
Oh, man. So first time it was because I wasn't feeling good. Second time was because we're just really understaffed this month at work. I mean, it's the Christmas season, so I had to stay back. But this time, I think all my shifts are good, so I should be good for just like opening. So I should be available for reviews going forward, thankfully. But yeah, I have been keeping up with the show and definitely really enjoying it so far.
Yeah, we missed you guys the past 2 weeks. I was like, Crystal and Stuart must be plotting. I don't know what it is with these Californians, man, but they just plotting over there, taking their time. But no, it's really great to have you guys. You know what? We're going to go ahead and dive into this. This is episode 4 for us for Skeleton Crew. Me and Will have been pretty pleased with the series so far. First episode, we graded a B. Episode 3 was B+. And then, I should say, Episode 1 was B. Episode 2 was a B+. Episode 3, believe it or not, was our first A that I think we gave any episode that we reviewed before. So definitely improving as we go along. But I am kind of curious. Let's start with Crystal and Stuart first to get your guys' overall thoughts on this week's episode, and then Will and I will certainly jump in. But Crystal, let's start off with you, ladies first. Overall thoughts on episode 4. What did you think?
Okay, so I hate that this is my first episode back with you guys because I've been loving everything Skeleton Crew has been doing, but like unfortunately this episode for me was probably like the weakest episode. I just felt like some of the issues I've been seeing and was able to ignore in the previous 3 episodes like really showed its face in this episode. I still really liked it, but it's like every episode has been like a banger after banger, and so like unfortunately this one was just like a step below. There's a lot of really great moments that I really liked in this show, so I can't wait to talk about that with you guys like when we get into it a little bit more. But overall, it was like I liked it a little bit less than everything else, and I hate to be that person.
Man, you just bring us down. First appearance on the show, 4 episodes. No, it's all good. No, I totally get where you're coming from though. In that regards, I've been thinking in my head after watching this episode, like, what am I gonna grade this episode? I don't feel as confident about my grading this week around. So I totally get where you're coming from. You ain't the only one. Yeah, it's not just you. Stuart, I do want to know your thoughts. What did you think on episode number 4?
I'm kind of relieved to hear that from both of you, because like I was also a bit like, I don't want to say fully let down by this episode, because it's not like I didn't like the episode. I thought the episode was just fine. It's just that I felt like episodes 1, 2, and 3 kept getting better, better, and better, and then this episode just kind of like plateaued a little bit. It didn't do that much exciting stuff in terms of like the story and world building. But in terms of character, I'll give it that. This episode definitely did kind of help cement some of the characters and their roles that'll be going forward in the next 3 episodes. So I think that the show did a really good job of character growth and character development. And moving the story along as a whole, yeah, I just kind of wish that, and I'll get a little bit more into it when we talk about the episode and individual parts of it. I just kind of think they could have done more with the world building aspect. It felt like they were a bit too vague on everything, and maybe that's because they don't want to reveal too much before the end of the show. But I just wish they could have given us just a little bit more, especially with the planet that we were currently on in this episode. It just kind of felt like everyone was just given the most vague answers that they could about like how their society kind of got to where it is the way we see it.
Yeah, I definitely felt like there was a lot left on the bone in regards to just exploration of the planet, learning a little bit more about the situation of how society got to the way that it was. And I even put in one of my notes, sometimes 30-minute episodes make it hard for me to really care about certain characters, but they can still do it if if they explore more aspects of why they're in the situation that they were. So I totally understand where you're coming from in that regards as well, Stuart. But yeah, I would agree with you. Enjoyable, still a decent, good episode, but it definitely lacking in some areas considering the path that we were on the first 3 episodes. What about you, Will? Are you are you in alignment with them, or do you have other thoughts on it? What do you think about episode 4?
So usually I'm the one that's like being hypercritical. I don't know. I don't because I actually really enjoyed this episode. I think it for me it continued to build on what we've established so far with this show. I really like the duplicate Earths. Well, duplicate planets. I mean, I guess it's a trope that we've seen in sci-fi before, where you'll have you'll see alternate worlds and how with all the set pieces and everything. And so for me, that really deepened the mystery of what we're getting more clues about the jewels of the old republic with each subsequent episode. After we learned about them. So for me, I really enjoyed it. Also, I think Neel is probably my favorite character. I mean, it was always I always felt that way to begin with, but this was the episode that really, as far as with all the characters, everybody has their episode, and this was his, and he was the primary focus, and I think his naivete, but also his hopefulness and just that innocence and that purity. Even though what they've been through so far, it was just really enjoyable and just very relatable for whatever reason. And so I think that was one of the things that really helped me enjoy this episode, and also just the interactions between Jod and Smee were also were I really like them playing off of each other, because that's been a consistent theme throughout the season. And so that was also a plus for me with this episode. So for me, it's I will probably I don't know if I'll give it as the same grade as I did episode 3 last week, but I might. I mean, I'm like you, Adam. I'm really it's really how where I'm going to grade it as far as the scale later. But for me, this was a great episode for me this week.
I will say sometimes my grading comes at the end because I like to hear you guys' opinions, and sometimes it does sway my thoughts on how I viewed the episode a little bit more. And to go what you said about Neel had me at comb over. I mean, I absolutely loved his little hairstyle, especially when it's flowing in the wind and stuff. Like, I'm just a really big fan of his just character design, and I really would like to see a behind the scenes on how they get Neel to work, because I'm sure that there's somebody
Yeah,
inside, but with animatronics and moving it
yeah,
around. Like, I would like to see how the
I
actor
agree.
goes all about that, because it's pretty incredible to certainly watch. But yeah, I would agree with you. Neel certainly carried this episode for me for sure. As far as I go, yeah, I'm very much. I would agree with Stuart in the sense that this felt like a plateau episode for me. I did feel like the first three episodes were certainly had really great pacing, where this one just kind of slowed down for me. So for me, I think the pacing was a little bit off, and honestly, and I don't know if this happens to anybody else, but sometimes like the color grading of a particular episode can sometimes change my mood about how I'm feeling about it. So maybe just like the blue color grading, the dustiness, the grittiness, like something just kind of mellowed me out in this week's episode. And I was kind of hoping that they would kind of continue along with that ride that they've had. But outside of that, I mean, I certainly enjoyed aspects of this episode. I continue to really enjoy the big set pieces that we wind up getting, whether that be the Troik's base, the top of the school where the people were certainly staying at. I really love the attention to detail in that regards, mixing in sort of great set pieces with the volume also in that regards. And I also appreciated the fact that this was a really a character focused episode. I do love that Neel kind of took the forefront. There's even a little bit of exploration when it comes to the Fern character too. I love that we learn a little bit more about SM33 or Shmi here, and I definitely would agree with you, Will. His back and forth with Jod always makes me laugh, especially when we got the babysitting protocol in this episode, which I thought was really humorous to me. And I thought that they had some really clever writing in regards to how they reveal what Shmi certainly knows about this planet and why he's kind of been keeping it secret overall. Really appreciate the mystery continuing in here, and the pieces kind of like one of the things that sometimes when I watch a show that's revolved around the mysteries, I feel like they give us a point and then they just like, and it takes them forever to like give us the next piece. Where I do feel like week to week they are building on top of this mystery, adding more to it, allowing us to kind of put the pieces together, and that's keeping me really enthralled and engrossed in the episode on a week to week basis. So I'm loving the mystery. I'm continuing to really love just the attention to detail, whether that be the set designs and really the character focus that we wind up getting this week, with the exception of, like I mentioned, the some of the supporting characters in here, like General, I don't remember what his name was, but General Strikes, I believe his name was. Some of these characters I didn't necessarily really care for. I think on my second watch, I think Hannah, I believe is her name, the girl that was alongside Neel in here, kind of grew on me a little bit more. But again, when you are dealing with 30-minute episodes, it is hard for me to truly care about them unless they have impactful moments. And I think Hannah helping Neel in his this episode this week in regards to allowing him to reveal more about himself, to me was a really big win. So yeah, I think the pacing has slowed this down for me a little bit. So I am in a weird place of how do I feel about this episode, but I clearly walked away certainly enjoying aspects of it for sure.
Yeah, I definitely definitely agree when it comes to like the character growth in this episode. That was like the big thing that made it hard for me to like judge the episode overall, because while I do think that the momentum was kind of killed with it, I also can't deny that they did a great job of like developing not just Neel, but like I also really got to give a lot of credit to women Fern in this episode too.
Yeah.
Because like for the first time you see like kind of Fern doubting herself, which is really cool. And it's really cool to see Win, who like, has been butting heads with her the entire series, actually like being nice and like giving her the pep talk that she really needed to hear, kind of showing growth for both of them at the same time. And then, yeah, of course, everyone's been talking about it, but yeah, I obviously have to agree with Neel in this episode, because I feel like also within the series, he's kind of been doing, I'd say, the least. He's been the most just like kind of just there, but it's really cool for him to finally have this moment where what he does is actually important to the episode going forward, and that he actually is able to overcome his own like kind of insecurities, his own fears, in order to basically save both women for Fern's life at the end of the episode. I thought that was a really cool moment.
What about you, Crystal? I know you're a big fan of Neel. What did you think about him this week?
Yeah, I loved his character arc. What I thought was so interesting when we first got on this like little arc for him was he was preaching so much about like pacifism.
Yeah,
So yeah, not fighting. But I think as he progressed through this episode, we kind of learned that it's not really him choosing to be nonviolent for like ethics. It's because he's scared, and I thought that that was really interesting. And I like that at the end of the episode, he was able to like stand up for himself and like find that bravery. So I thought that was like an interesting take. Like he chose not to fight for the convenience of it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you there because there is a moment where he does say as they're like approaching as a group, he's like, I'm not just saying we shouldn't do that because I'm scared. He does add to the idea. He's like, I just think the idea of like just ending this in just a peacefulness, or apologizing or saying I'm sorry sort of mentality,
Right.
could really kind of let that go all the way. So yeah, I totally agree with you. I said, even in my notes, I said shows his more pacifist sort of perspective of things in that regards. But yeah, there's a little hint of him being scared, but also I just think he's just like, can we all just get along type of thing? Because him pointing out, I think, which is important in this episode, is the idea that like, if you continue down this path of war, like it's just going to continue to repeat itself, right? And I do love the fact that Hannah at the end of this says, while kindness is your weakness, I guess is what she says. She says maybe this world needs a little bit more of your kindness, and
Yeah.
I don't know, something about that just kind of really hit for me, and I think
Yeah.
she learned something from him at the end of the day, and I think she's going to be sort of the end of that generational war aspect on
Yeah.
her planet when her time comes.
And to that point, Adam, that's really why this episode just stood out to me, because even though yes, time frame wise it was short. I mean, about maybe 30 minutes or so of actual runtime. The morality lesson that was taught in this episode is what makes really good, for me at least, really great sci-fi, really great you know s- everything has to be like action packed and stuff. A lot of times it is good to have that change of pace
You're right.
and use these
Yeah.
set pieces to really, as a kid, on one, it was really, I've said it before, yes, it is a kid's show, but also it does appeal to the other quadrants as well, because, for adults, that you read between the lines and really see the bigger message that they were really trying to show in the writing here, as far as the futility of war. And and so, so that was that lesson that Neil was able to teach. Was there Hema or Hela?
Hannah, I believe.
Hana, yeah, Hana. So that was the lesson he was able to teach her, and like as you said, I mean, just to pick up on your point, that's the lesson that, whenever she made it a point a few times in the episode to say whenever her father passes on, she was going to be the leader, and so, she sees a different path, and and by this brief interaction with these four kids from At-Achrann, they were able, it'll hopefully change the path for At-Achrann or whatever it's called. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And I
So
love the
I think that's what made this episode really stand out for me, and why I think this show continues to really grow. And I made a comment in the message, when you're talking about the color grading and stuff, it was getting Andor vibes, and they're also just the writing and the directions by the Daniels was also giving me that Andor vibe too, because it's about bigger things than just this one little set piece that they were dealing with in the show, in
I
this
think
episode.
I think one thing that's interesting about comparing this episode in particular to Andor is both of them do kind of break on a meta level, like the big thing with on a meta level they both break Star Wars's big marketing thing, which is of course the fact that it's like literally in the name Star Wars. Even though the
Mhm.
message in Star Wars has always been that war is always bad, the thing is we live in a capitalistic world where marketing is a thing, so they have to keep selling more wars in the world of Star Wars in order for it to be marketable, for it to be a franchise, right? Sorry, I only say that to say that Andor and then a show like this are those kind of exceptions where it's not necessarily as much about marketing as it would be for like the franchise sequels, for example. Like instead we're able to focus on a more human aspect of it and get a more human perspective on the whole thing. And so what I love about Andor anti-war, and with this episode in particular is getting that anti-war perspective from people that actually live within that universe. That we can still have the fun adventures that in all of our other Star Wars media, but it's good to like be able to kind of like have a really grounded approach to kind of like a more human perspective on the whole, like what war really looks like to just your average Joe, basically, and show, hey, it's not pretty as like the movies kind of try to make it look. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I do say too, I think it's also an interesting perspective that point is coming from kids in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
That is coming from a younger generation and how they kind of view things. I mean, even though Hannah very much seems like she's kind of been built for war, the opposite is you get somebody like Neel who has food in his hand and winds up giving it to the hungry kids that are clearly starving on there. And it is something interesting about the society in here, the fact that General Strikes, I can never remember his damn name, sends the kids to the front line in here, despite him saying, no, we really appreciate children and their perspective and we treat them like adults around here. I'm trying to scan the room and I see kids playing, I see some kids that are hungry, but I really don't see a lot of kids, I felt like, in his particular army. So it almost felt like the way that he treats this kid clearly doesn't live up to what he told them at the beginning, almost just like they're fodder for war in that kind of mentality. But I did find it interesting that the mentality of the pacifism was coming from a child like Neel.
Indeed. Yeah.
Shout out to Scarif, say he just subscribed here. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that. Mariah certainly coming through, also saying she loves the blue Neel inspired look. If there was any day for the look, it's definitely today, man. I loved his little story too about his fight with his younger brother, talking about he sprained his trunk. I thought that was like the funniest thing. I'm just picturing Neel with like a cast on his trunk, sort of thing,
like splints, like
yeah, absolutely. But it is cool that at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, he is the one at the end of this episode that sticks up for his friends. That really hit me, I thought.
Yeah, they're so sweet. So I really liked how Neel really was the focus of this episode, and he had like a really nice character arc. Like we saw a lot of character growth from him. But I really want to talk about Fern because I feel like her growth as a character, to me at least, felt the most dramatic. Like I feel like for the last 3 episodes, she has been like the tough guy. She's the self-proclaimed leader. And I feel like the moment they got on At-Achrann and they met Hannah, from the moment they met Hannah, I feel like it was challenging Fern's beliefs in herself and her role in this group of the skeleton crew. And then at the very end, we see her kind of show this moment of vulnerability and her kind of like question and have doubt within herself, but then figure it out later. I really love that. I felt like her little arc, even though it wasn't the main focus, like was the most powerful for me.
Yeah, I definitely would follow suit in that regards, because there is a moment when Hannah comes on the scene and she's doing all this cool shit, like she's like jumping and kicking the door down, right? And Wim is just like impressed by everything she does, like whoa, like the little kid is so amazed. But even her like sliding when they're inside the bus, like you can look at Fern, and Fern does look like uncomfortable, like in the sense that she's truly questioning, looking at this girl like, follow me, like okay, like like this is not what I signed up for. But I would agree. Fern still tries to sort of, I don't want to say necessarily take a stand for herself, but tries to have her presence known, especially when they get captured and she's like Captain Fern, right? Like she's trying to have some level of dominance there. But it is nice to finally see that level of vulnerability of her starting to kind of question herself a little bit, doubting because of the fact of the situations that they're in, kind of putting the blame and shoulders on her. But once she gets that sort of I also really love the line that she said in here. She says, I'm not a droid, don't like being told what to do. That struck me just because I feel like my girlfriend tells me that all the time. Don't tell me what to do, like in a joke yeah, in a joking manner, obviously, but it's just there is that level of like independency, you know what I mean, that I think I really appreciate about somebody like Fern, that she still sticks true to her values, but clearly she feels like she's a little bit in over her head this week, but still really proving to herself, I think, that I am meant to be here when she's the one that figures out what it is that she gets to do. So the doubt and then the the affirmation for herself, I thought was really powerful this week.
Yeah, and I think when it's Hannah does give them like, hey, we need to get out of here, or we need to hide, or whatever. I think that's the first time that Fern has nothing to say. Because before she would talk back to the pirate, she would talk back to the kid, she would talk back to the droid, or reassert herself as the captain. But when Hannah shows up, she's just kind of like, oh, this girl's a leader. Like, so I thought that was really interesting. And just like I feel like they planted a lot of little tiny breaks in her facade, I guess, and then it really came to a head like beautifully.
Yeah, I totally agree. Especially, I mean, she certainly wasn't even the one to lead the charge into the battle.
Right,
Also, she was like
right.
off to the side, sort of thing. Like, I really don't know what I got ourselves into. So yeah, I agree with you. I think the idea that she didn't really get as much attention this episode was pretty beneficial. I think for her character overall.
Yeah.
What do you guys? How do? Oh yeah, go ahead, Will.
No, I was saying I was disagreeing. I think that definitely is. I think really this episode, the KB and when KB was just more. I'm still wanting to figure out what her apparatus is there, because it seems like, I don't know, is she, we theorize that she's like Lobot or something, or where that it's helping her with some type of sensory thing, or whatever. But I mean, she really is sort of still the mechanical genius, the whiz kid who like just kind of does things off to the side. But so I'm looking forward to seeing some deeper explorations for her, because I just feel like she and Wen are still of the character, still feel like they're like still episode 2 level, whereas Fern and Neel are, their character growth has progressed a little bit more than those other two.
How do you guys
Yeah.
feel about Wim being the one to sort of affirm or Wim being the one to affirm Fern in this episode? I know Stuart kind of brought it up a little bit when he was talking about his overall thoughts. I thought it was a pretty interesting choice based off of just the back and forth that these two have been doing. Even calling her amazing, saying that she's been doing an amazing job, which I thought was really sweet of him. What do you
Yeah.
guys take away from that?
Yeah, I think to that, what I was saying before. I mean, I think that is a step that he does look up to her, because she has, she was, from the moment they met in the, I guess they were acquainted with one another in the school, and I guess in the first episode or whatever, we had, when he missed the test and everything like that. But it really, he sees her kind of like big sis, thinking about back to the Goonies or some of those other, there's always that one character who all the kids look up to. So Wynn looks up to Fern, and he was just trying to be like, look, we believe in you. You've gotten us this far, because he says it. Look, if I had been the leader, we would have been killed. I'm paraphrasing, but he acknowledges that.
Yeah.
I have no idea what's going on. You've gotten us out of so many situations. So
it to me felt like the first time he finally took his head out of the clouds and was like, okay, this is reality now. I need to stop, treating this like this is just some fun adventure, and realize, okay, we're actually kind of in trouble. We're literally lost in space. So, I think it was great because it just showed maturity for both him and Fern together. Like, both of them growing character development wise.
Yeah.
So my initial thought was I felt like it was unearned, I think because of what you were saying, Stuart, like that was the moment he chose to get his head out of the clouds. I wish that there's like a little bit more before that, but after hearing you and Will kind of tell it from your perspective, I think I am coming around to that.
Yeah. Like, I think, like, while that was the moment, I think the episode itself kind of did build up to it, personally, with like, just because, again, we're seeing these people that grew up on a planet where, like Neel even says, everything is basically kind of like handed to them. They never have to fight for anything. And then now they're in this world where, like, they're seeing like almost like the polar opposite of their own world. And it's so perfect because it's on a world that's literally designed exactly like their world. So it's like the perfect way to kind of like reflect what they had and what other people don't have. So I think that was kind of what built up to him, like eventually kind of realizing, okay, this is no longer, just a game anymore.
Yeah, completely agree. I think that's what I think having the set pieces these worlds be duplicates of each other, and I'm really, and that's a big sort of overall arc that, especially whenever they do get to the supervisor tower on this planet, is something we're going to see more of as the series progresses. That as they will pick up more coordinates and in order to piece the puzzle together to get back home. Will they also run into worlds that also have that similar development pattern that this planet did? But there'll be some kind of twist, obviously, that will lead to more character development adventures for the team.
So let's build off on that, because as they do get to the supervisor tower, they do find coordinates, at least for other planets. 5 additional planets. We already have them at At-Achrann. Then we've got at Atun, at Arisa, at Arisa, and then at Aravin, and then at Akoda. And then, of course, you got At-Attin as well. So it looks like there's overall 6 planets, 5 that have coordinates. I'm kind of under the impression that because they do have the coordinates for the other ones, I got to assume that that's where they're going to be headed, at least to each of those planets in an attempt to try and find At-Attin. Is that where you guys are kind of under the impression that the next few episodes they may be visiting some of these planets?
I think so. For the reason why I just said.
Yeah, trying to put the pieces together.
Yeah.
Let's take some shots at it. What is going on at Achrann here? It is sort of very much like a copycat, an old barrier outside of the planet too. Maybe it was a cloaking device. I have no idea. Same suburban environment. I think KB is the one who even says maybe this planet was co-founded by At-Attin. Any thoughts on what this world is?
They're like the Fallout vaults from the Fallout video games in the sense that they're all built with like a different experiment in mind. So like maybe one planet was built to be like the Utopia, which is At-Attin, and maybe another planet like the one they're on was built to be a dystopia. And then there's probably 4 more with very similar or similar designs but completely different environments, and it's like all just an experiment to see how people survive on these different worlds. That's kind of the vibe that I get. So if I had to make a prediction, it's probably in that ballpark.
Yeah, I agree.
Any other ones?
With the whole supervisor thing, I mean, that's that and also whenever we last week whenever we were with the owl character, I forgot, Captain Kim, they were able to pull the star maps, and we got the other maps of the old the jewels of the old republic. So so I think they'll start piecing those things together, and I agree with Stuart. I think each planet, especially given that they've been insulated, at least Attin was insulated from the Galactic War, and I think it is going to be one of those kind of planned things that that maybe it was separate, whether it's a Jedi or whoever set it up. I do think there is some type of planned societies that we're going to see here, especially given that we had the supervisor on At-Attin, and then also we just got these coordinates and stuff. So I mean, it just lends itself to that type of mystery and that type of path moving forward with the show.
I was fascinated by the sculpture on this planet. Almost like like it reminds me of like a dictator in like a foreign country that builds a statue of themselves before being pulled down. When people start revolting, sort of thing. And it does make me question. We asked the question last week, like, who the hell is the supervisor, guys? And I come back to that same question as to like, who is the supervisor? Crystal, do you have any theories on what's going on At-Achrann?
Yeah, I mean, my theory is definitely not as well thought out as these two over here. But I was thinking, like, why would At-Achrann be in shambles? And why is At-Attin not in shambles? Like, why is it the jewel of the High Republic? And who is the supervisor? I kind of think, and I've been seeing some like little whispers on Twitter, that maybe the supervisor is the pirate or the captain pirate, and maybe like he went to these other planets and saw that they're all in shambles and found At-Attin to be perfect and decided to like become the supervisor and keep At-Attin as protected and safe as possible.
Oh, like the captain of the ship, like
Yeah,
Shani's captain.
the ship that we found, that the kids found.
Oh yeah, that's possible.
And that's probably why he didn't want anyone to find it, because he wanted to keep it protected. Okay, I like that.
Yeah,
kind of little Wizard of Oz a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's a great comparison.
Yeah, I do dig that.
Yeah, I think that theory too, and I think. Well, the other thing too, when they approached At-Achrann, this planet, I think we did see the machinery, because I was first time I watched it, I didn't see the satellites and stuff, but I did see it looked like shield generators and stuff that were there. So if there's definitely, if the captain is the supervisor for all this, and it makes sense, especially given that Shmi was on the ship and was programmed that way. To keep the secret from anyone. That theory definitely like flies as well. So man, that's also a very good theory.
Yeah, I think that's a good theory also. If I had to guess, in my notes I wind up putting I'm starting to believe it's At-Achrann is a society that's kind of gone wrong, and they, because of the fact that Neel, when he goes in there, he says, "Oh, look at this tree. It's clearly been there longer than At-Attin," right? So he believes that the suburban environment that they're in has been there longer. So I'm under the impression that At-Achrann is a society that clearly went wrong, and the survivors are meant to try again on At-Attin. Like, I think At-Attin originally starts off as a planet strictly to hold treasure, but I think once society starts to kind of fall, I think they decide to, let's start over again, and let's start over on At-Attin and establish it. And I think that could be why we have the protocol droids. That could be why we have the assessment tests. I think it's all sort of new rules kind of set in place to kind of keep society sort of more in line. So I don't think At-Attin started out as a suburban area or a suburban planet that's meant to be hidden. I think it's At-Achrann was maybe the beginning of that. It went terribly wrong, and those that survived decided to start again and planted themselves on At-Attin with all the barriers in place to keep them from attempting to go into a big another war like that, to keep people from rebelling. I that's kind of the impression that I'm under, though.
Yeah,
I like that.
I like that too. Yeah, I mean, there's some great, and I think this is what's so awesome about this show, and how well thought that Chris Ford and John Watts has Christopher Ford, I guess, and John Watts has really created this unit, this show. It really shows a very, when you get past the cute kids and all the things, it's there's multiple levels within Skeleton Crew that I think, quite frankly, has been missing in some of the other TV shows recently. So I think that's why I think one reason why the show is really just resonating with folks, because there is a lot of just good stuff that we can really mine there. There's also some just new things, because it's not really, it is somewhat separated from the traditional Star Wars stuff. For example, the Galactic War really is not even a thing here. Yeah, there's the Jedi, that they thought, that we did see Jude Law, Jod do the thing that he's force sensitive, clearly, or whether he's a Jedi or just learned a good power trick, we'll find out. But I think this show is really, it shows that you can tell a Star Wars story without having to lean on the legacy stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I do have a question, because you brought up Jod. Will, he does kind of give hints a little bit about his where he came from, at least talking about it place kind of reminds him of home, the ashy dust kind of taste that he leaves. I do wonder if there's some theories going on Twitter right now as to, like, I can see people trying to figure out like ash planets in Star Wars, like trying to dwindle it down.
Clearly, he lives next door to Vader.
Yeah, that was the first, like, ooh, Mustafar. I'd be interested.
Yeah, Twitter is such a dumpster fire, and I'm afraid to go too far into Star Wars Twitter anymore after how things have been recently.
Right.
Any thoughts on SM-33 in this episode in regards to the reveal that Homeboy has known this entire time, but clearly his previous captain told him, "Hey, if anybody asks you about At-Attin, this is how you're kind of how you have to respond, right? You have to act like you don't know anything about it." Fern figures it out because she does the same thing with her droid at home when she doesn't want her mom to find out things about what she's up to. I am curious as to why, even though Fern is now the new captain, why her commands don't override, the previous commands, in the sense of like, don't kill me, I'm your new captain sort of mentality. But clearly he does give her the answer that she's looking for.
Well, I think it just reactivated the original commands rather than overriding them. It just kind of ended up because I don't know. I guess the way droid circuits or brains or memory cards, whatever you want to call them, work are just kind of weird sometimes. So I think that like when there's kind of like a paradox or a contradiction like within a droid's orders, that's when like it kind of becomes random. Like any order could like follow through at that point. I think that's kind of what happened. I do think that the reveal was pretty well done. They definitely put the pieces there because like usually if a character repeats something very, very specific more than once, that's going to be an important thing later on. And then also the fact that like he very much seemed very familiar with that planet in the beginning. I just think the pieces were set up there really perfectly. And the fact that we also saw her, like you said, doing that with her own droid in the first episode, I think that was a really cool way to like set that up and then have it be. That's why Fern was the one to figure it out before anyone else. I think that was a really cool like kind of setup and payoff.
Yeah, I thought that was really clever writing for sure.
Yeah, and also just from a set piece too, just because I'm a huge fan of Everything Everywhere All at Once, and whenever he was having the meltdown moment, it was a quintessential Daniels shot. If you've seen Everything Everywhere All at Once with that. The motion in the background, but the camera just like sat on him. I mean, that was I just really like that moment direction there too. So maybe that's another reason why I'm just really vibing with this episode.
Yeah, I thought beautifully. It was definitely a great direction. It felt very like GoPro camera forward facing sort of thing with a really cool movement. I was a really big fan of that. I don't know what I was expecting from the Daniels here in this week's episode. I guess maybe there's a part of me that thought momentum wise they would continue to build off of the other one in the sense of maybe more action or more bombastic sequences and stuff. But I will definitely agree with you that last sequence for sure kind of stood out. Did you see anything else in that episode, Will, that stood out to you in the sense of like, yeah, this is definitely the Daniels?
Just thinking back to Everything, just some of the camera angles, just sort of set. I mean, just the use of the set and just the color grading. Also, just thinking back to Everything Everywhere All at Once. Just use, I think it was a good mix of the practical effect and also the visual effect. I don't know how much how much if any they've used it of the volume, but where they have used it, and I saw someone in a comment mentioning that this was a good blend of the two. Whereas the world felt real. I mean, whenever the ship was like landed in the suburbs, and just the little details that they had in the shot with like the merry-go-round. I mean, that was just it just felt the world just felt very lived in, and so I know on our main show we've been talking about Dune, Prophecy, and the set design and stuff, and where Star Wars, where the Dune universe, sometimes the set pieces don't feel lived in. This one does, and that really just sort of stood out for me.
Yeah, I would also say I feel like the lighting was different in this one. Like the lighting design, we got some like the scene where Neel was talking to, what was her name? I'm so sorry. Hana.
Yeah.
We got like light coming across them. And it's just like those little things that really set the mood and set the tone. And I feel like, I don't know, in the past, maybe from shooting on the volume, we're kind of like afraid to add light or directional light, but it was done so well. And I feel like it just gave it like a little bit of pop and like made it feel a little bit more real.
Yeah.
But I would agree with you, Will. This show feels very lived in. I think the costumes feel lived in, the makeup, like everything feels like they had art department. They had like a whole crew of people, which I think that we've been missing, and I think it makes it feel so much more tangible.
Yeah.
Like we can tell.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that was one of the problems that we talked about here on this with, the four of us talked about with one of the problems with the Acolyte. It just
With the
felt too
Acolyte.
clean.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It didn't feel
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
Whereas this, this felt everything like they just like got it off the rack. Here, it feels like it's a
Yeah.
real, it just
Right.
feels like a very lived in world. And, Adam, you were talking about like Neel and the animatronics and things that they did. And I think that's just, you know, I connect with that character. And I think it's the way that the Daniels directed whoever's whoever's doing the voice work for and the puppeteering work and everything else. It was just, to your point, Crystal, all the departments were in sync, and it just felt
Mhm.
I just really connected this week more so than others. I think that on an emotional level with the character.
So I had no idea this episode was directed by the Daniels, but it does make so much sense looking at Neil's character growth, because literally his exact like kind of character development is so similar to Wayman from Everything Everywhere All at Once. The idea of like pacifism isn't like a weakness; it's just
Whoa.
it's how I fight. And it's funny because that's what I was thinking after the episode. I was just thinking that's coincidence, but now knowing that the two of them directed it, I'm kind of thinking that might have been there on purpose. That's pretty cool. Also, for the other thing you said about the world living, like being a lot more lived in, I definitely agree with you there. And I think it kind of goes down to the blocking, a lot of it too, not only the really good set designs, but because like looking at Acolyte, like this is something that I feel like a lot of people kind of bring up, is how like especially when they're at the Jedi Tower or the Jedi Temple, like on Coruscant, is that everything feels so empty. It's just like there's so much empty space compared to how it looked in the prequels. Whereas here, everything is so filled. You look at the previous the second episode when they're in that like kind of pirate space station. Not only is it filled with extras and all these really cool costumes, but they're all doing stuff. They're all like all the extras are busy, just like in this episode. You see plenty of extras in the background, and they're not just standing around talking casually. Like they're all doing stuff that you would imagine people, trying to survive doing. And I think that a little attention to detail really goes a long way in making this feel like an actual world we're living in, and not that we're just watching a stage play.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. And I think just to continue adding on to this, I think the show does it so well. I think even like the acting or the dialogue between the characters, like they have so many little moments where we get senses of each other's dynamic just from how they interact with each other, how they interact with the people around them, how they try to talk over each other. Or I feel like, there's not a lot of exposition here, and it's a lot of us kind of relating to the characters and the way they interact. And I think that also helps it feel lived in.
Yeah, I think what John Watts did as a showrunner, I think he did a great job in finding directors that really fit the episodes that he wants to tell. And I think by having those directors, you can get more out of not only your story, but your performances also from everybody involved. And I think it just kind of all comes together. And I would agree with you guys that this world does feel very lived in. I think one of the things that I said in an earlier review was when I think of the Acolyte, for some reason, I think of like Xena, Warrior Princess, or Hercules, in the sense of like just the set pieces just feel fake to me in a sense when I watch the Acolyte. But here they must have, I think somebody, Scarif might have said it in the comments, that they really have gotten the hang of maybe how to utilize the volume properly when they mix it in with practical actual set pieces. Because absolutely, Stuart, when I go back to episode 2, the Port Borgo is so immersive, it's so huge and expansive, but it feels lived in. I mean, I feel like I can go around any corner and just be immersed in that particular world. Even going over to the moon planet in episode 4, like the use of just having the volume screen for the actual planet in the background, and then walking over the dunes and stuff. Even to the observatory for Captain Kim's her place. I mean, everything. They just really pay attention to detail. And just to follow up with you too, Crystal, that Hannah and Neel scene, The lighting certainly worked there, and I even love after she kisses him. It's almost like a mini slow motion scene that Neel is kind of in, like when he's like, I almost feel like I could picture the heart shapes all around his head, sort of thing. Like that little girl, that little girl that he had a crush on At-Attin, that's out of the window now, man.
Right. He's
Heinous
coming
is
back a
focused.
man.
Yeah, he's coming back up. That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. That's everything that I thought about in there. So yeah, I completely agree. Everything's coming together for this show for sure. All right, y'all. With that out of the way, are there any pros, any cons, anything that we didn't talk about that you guys still wanted to bring up or anything like that?
I have one.
What
The
you got?
moment when
Is this a pro? Is this a pro?
It's a pro. It's a pro.
Okay. What you got?
I laughed so hard when SM-33 and Jod were coming out of the ship, and SM-33 was like, "Yeah, there was warriors. We had to like hide all these warriors." And Jod is like, "Oh my god, you crazy old drunk man!" And then all of a sudden they're surrounded by warriors, and he's like, "You know what? Just shoot me."
Yeah, that was
I
pretty
laughed
hilarious.
so hard at that.
Yeah, the humor was pretty good in this episode, like that. And then I also love the beginning when they basically told him to stay on the ship, and they had the droid like basically being a babysitter. Don't make me count to 10.
So good.
Yeah, it was pretty spot on. I loved it.
I do.
What you got?
I do have a con though.
What's your con?
Okay, so my con is, and this is something that could easily change in the next 2 episodes, depending on, whether or not it gets explained. It's just because of now, as the way it was presented, I do wish we could have gotten a little more world building. Because like I said, kind of in the beginning, I do feel like whenever people were kind of explaining, the world they were living on, like just saying, oh yeah, we're basically at war with the people who, have this flag and that kind of stuff. I just feel like it was a little bit vague, and I would have liked a little bit more, like why are they butting heads and everything like that. I just feel like they didn't, and I guess because they had only 30 minutes and that wasn't like the whole point of what they wanted to focus on in the episode. That's fine. I would have liked a little bit more, and that's why I also want to say is that my opinion on this could easily change, because there might be a reason they're not telling us right now. It may be because they really want to save it for the next 2 episodes. So I don't want to say this is a major con, but it was definitely a con for this episode in particular.
Yeah, I'll back that with you also. I definitely want a little bit more, but yeah, you're right. I mean, we have seen this before in the sense that they establish something, and a couple episodes later, it's there's a reason for why they plan it in there. So yeah, maybe they'll clarify that as we learn more about the other planets as we go through them. So we'll see. All right, guys. It is that moment of truth as we get to the end of our episode 4 review. Grading time, baby. I'm not going to have you guys break it down for acting, editing, directing, writing, but I'm just going to ask for your overall score. Feel free to use the legend at the bottom. If you were to take a report card home to your parents and be like, look what I graded. Look what they graded episode 4 of Skeleton Crew, Ma. What would your average be, and what is that? What's that letter score? Will, I'll let you go first, Will.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is going to be another A for me, another 90.
Ooh, Will coming in strong, man. I love it, Will. What about you, Crystal?
I think I would have rated this a lot lower pre-conversation, but I think now I would give it an 86.
86. Oh, okay. You're gonna go B plus. I like it. What about you, Stuart? What you got?
I think, like Crystal, I also would have had a lower rating at the beginning before we talked about the episode. But you guys definitely pointed out some things that totally went over my head the first time, and kind of looking back on it, yeah, there were a lot more. I definitely should have watched this episode twice for sure. So I will definitely do that next week. So now I'm definitely changing my score. Would have been an 80 at the very beginning, but now I'm changing it to a 85 solid B.
85 solid B. Gotcha. Yeah, I think for me, I think I was personally going to come in pretty low on this, like a C plus, honestly. But I think speaking with you guys definitely changed my perspective on this episode. I don't know if I'm going to go as strong as Stuart here in the 85, but I will go at 83. I'm going to go a B here still. I don't know if I want to give it a B minus, but I will jump up to a B here. So let's see here. Take this average. We got 85 plus 83. Divide that baby by 4.
8 out of 10 Neels.
This one is going to come out to an 86 for us. So this is another B+ episode. 86. All right, guys. So let me see. 4 episodes in, B+, A, B+. Working out pretty good for Skeleton Crew. I definitely want to know what you guys. Yeah, Scar says 8 out of 10 Neels. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely works for me, man. But awesome, guys. Thank you so much. Any final thoughts as we wrap up? I'm trying to see if there's anybody in the comments. Scarf says every time we drink. Take a drink every time they mention the Acolyte. Yeah, I mean, hey, we're fresh off that. We're fresh off that series. You know what I mean?
Once
Yeah,
season 2 comes out, we'll be talking about we'll be comparing it to Skeleton Crew. You know,
Right?
Yeah, Crystal with the sad face. Yeah,
I know.
I'm so sad. No season 2 either. I will tell you, on my Facebook page, I posted a video. Have you guys seen like the template or like the meme of the baby crying on TikTok? Like people will put it in front of like an image or a video. It's like a baby that goes to pick for something and the mom tells it no and it starts crying, and then it goes back for it again. The mom says no and it starts crying. I did that for an Acolyte season 2 poster of the baby wanting more of it and the mom saying no. I posted on Facebook. Man, I'm getting trashed in the comments, bro. I'm getting trashed in the comments. Yeah. People get defensive when you bring up Acolyte, for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because we did it. We were like, we don't need a season 2, but now we're kind of like, let them cook.
I kind of want one now.
Well, I'm still there. I'm good.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm in the camp of I'm not mad we're not getting a season 2, but I do think the show would have gotten better if it did.
Yeah.
We'll
see.
Yeah, I had the little beer chugs there, you know. So yeah.
Scarif says from a camera perspective, it's richer. There's better dynamic. There's nice movement in the camera work and establishing shots. Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Scarif is actually a cam op. Are you cam op or are you DP? Remind me, please. But they work in show business.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Awesome.
So yeah, he knows exactly what he's talking about. That very cool. We appreciate you guys. Everybody certainly joining us in the live chat, giving us some of your thoughts on this week's episode. Also, always appreciate having the opportunity to bounce back with you as well. So, look, guys, we'll definitely be back here next Wednesday. I don't know what Crystal's.
I'll be there. Wait, are we doing Wednesday? Because Wednesday.
Oh, that's right. It is Christmas. That's right. I'll get in touch with. We probably won't be doing it Christmas. We'll see what everybody's schedule is like on either Thursday or Friday. But I'll talk with you guys off camera in that regards. But let's go around and circle here. Crystal, if people want to follow you on social media, plug yourself. Where can they find you?
Yes, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Just type in Crystal Kuiper. I do makeup and Star Wars and fandom videos. I also have a fandom clothing brand called Bad Feeling. We have some Star Wars stuff out right now, but it's getbadfeeling.com.
Excellent. We'll definitely have to check it out for sure. Definitely go ahead and support her, guys. Will, if people want to find you on social media, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on all the socials. My personal handle is Will M Polk, WILLMPOLK, on all the social platforms. You can also find our show on @SceneNerd on Twitter, BlueSky, @scene_n_nerd on Instagram and Threads. Of course, we can just go to our website, www.scenenerdpodcast.com. Be able to get all our latest podcasts. We're covering Doom Prophecy right now. We're going to have our finale episode next Monday, and we just dropped our review of the penultimate episode today. So go check us out wherever you get your podcast.
Excellent
to
have you.
Thanks again for having me on.
Always. Well, anytime, man. You're always welcome here, bro. Scarif said, had fun. I came for Crystal and stayed for Adam, Stewart, and Will. We appreciate that, man. Thank you again for the subscription.
That's fair.
Yeah. Stewart, what about you, man? Where can people find you on social media?
You guys can find me on Instagram @TurboStew01. And of course, you guys can always find me here on the channel, A+ Hero Report, every Sunday. And I have a feeling next Sunday is going to be a fun episode because that's when Adam and I are going to be talking about that Superman trailer coming out tomorrow. And you can bet that I'm going to be geeking the heck out of it.
Yeah, man, I can't wait. Tomorrow's gonna be a big day, and then of course Sunday for us for sure. Mariah says, "Great show, y'all. Looking forward to more episodes." Yeah, definitely. Hopefully have you back, Mariah, each and every week. So thank you so much for that. If you guys want to follow us on social media, everywhere at A Plus Opinions. All our links are in the description box below. We are over on BlueSky at heroreport.bsky.social. Also at TikTok at Hero Report if you want to follow us there. But everywhere else at A Plus Opinions. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and do so. Click that subscription button and that notification bell, so anytime we drop a brand new video, you guys will certainly be notified. But that will certainly do it for us. We'll certainly see you guys next week. So until then, do us a big favor. As always, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep it A plus. May the force be with you. We'll talk to you later. Bye.